In the silent depths of ancient caves, unweathered stone tablets, and woven into the oral traditions of the oldest tribes on Earth, there exists a pattern so consistent, so persistent, that it challenges everything we believe about our origins. This is not a story of isolated myths or primitive superstitions. This is the story of humanity's oldest shared memory, a memory of contact. Across deserts, mountains, jungles, and ice across thousands of miles and tens of thousands of years, human beings who could never have met, who spoke languages born on opposite sides of the globe, told the same story. Beings descending from the heavens, teachers arriving after a catastrophe, architects of civilization emerging from the clouds, the stars, or the sea. What if these stories were never myths at all? What if they were eyewitness accounts? Long before writing, before cities, before history as we know it, the first human artists left their testimony on rock. They did not paint kings or conquests. They painted what inspired awe, what inspired fear in the Sahara Desert. Algeria minus 10,000 years ago, ***, the Tassili Niger Plateau was once a lush grassland, teeming with life. Here, Neolithic artists painted their world with stunning detail. Giraffes, elephants, hunting parties, daily life. But among these ordinary scenes are extraordinary figures. Tall, elongated beings with rounded, helmet-like heads. Some appear to float above the ground. Others are connected by lines resembling tubes or cables. The most famous, called the Great Martian God, stands nearly 12 feet tall on the cave wall, his body rigid, his head perfectly circular. French archaeologist Henri Lotte, who documented these paintings in the 1950s, wrote, "These are not human. Mainstream archaeology labels them ritual costumes or shamanic visions. But why would shamans across the world wear identical costumes? Why would visions take the same form on every continent? Kimberley region, Australia, the Wangina. For the Aboriginal peoples of northwestern Australia, the Wangina are not legends. They are ancestors. Painted on cave walls and cliffs, these sky beings have large, dark eyes, no mouths, and halos of light surrounding their heads. According to tradition, the Wangina descended from the Milky Way during the Dreamtime. They brought rain, created rivers and landscapes, established laws and social order, and then returned to the clouds. Their images are repainted annually not as art, but as ritual, to maintain the covenant between sky and earth. The Wangina stories explicitly state these beings could not speak human languages. They communicated through thought, their energy, and they arrived in clouds that became solid. Valcamonica, Italian Alps minus 8000 BCE. Here, among the world's largest collections of prehistoric petroglyphs, are figures that defy simple explanation. Humanoid forms inside circular or disc-like shapes. Rays of light emanating from their bodies. Some hold objects that resemble tools or weapons, emitting lines of force. Archaeologists classify them as sun worship or star symbols, but the locals have an older name. Glide volante, the flying gods. Oral traditions speak of luminous beings who descended from the mountains, taught metalworking, and disappeared into the sky. The global pattern emerges from the Dogon of Mali, who depict the amphibious Namo beings from Sirius, to the Hopi of Arizona, with their ant people who led humans underground during cataclysms, to the Sandbushmen of South Africa painting slender, radiant star people in the Drakensberg caves. The imagery is hauntingly similar. Large, often elongated heads, bodies that are thin or encased in something, a connection to light, rays, halos, and always, an origin point, the sky. These cultures were separated by oceans, by ice ages, by millennia. There was no internet, no long-distance travel, no cultural exchange, yet their gods look identical. Around 12,000 years ago, something unprecedented happened. The Ice Age ended. The climate stabilized. And human societies, which had been small, nomadic, hunter-gatherer groups for hundreds of thousands of years, suddenly transformed. Almost overnight, in archaeological terms. Humans began farming, building cities, developing mathematics and astronomy. This Neolithic revolution didn't happen in one place and spread slowly. It happened simultaneously, independently, in at least 6 separate locations around the world. The question is, why? What triggered this sudden awakening? Sumar 3800 BCE, the Anunnaki, in the Fertile Crescent between the Tigris and Euphrates. The Sumerians invented civilization as we know it. The first cities Uruk, Ur, the first writing cuneiform, the first legal codes, the first schools, the first advanced astronomy. And they were absolutely clear about where this knowledge came from. It was not invented. Their clay tablets describe the Anunnaki, those who from heaven to earth came. These were not abstract deities. They were physical beings who descended in flying boats or fiery chariots. They were taller than humans, lived for thousands of years, and possessed advanced technology. The tablets detail how the Anunnaki genetically modified early humans to create a workforce, how they taught agriculture, specifically grain cultivation, how they established kingship with human kings, acting as intermediaries to these sky gods. The most fascinating detail: the Sumerians accurately described the solar system, including planets like Neptune and Uranus, which are invisible to the naked eye. They knew these were spheres, that they orbited the sun, and they even knew about Pluto's elliptical orbit. Knowledge officially discovered in the 19th and 20th centuries. Ancient Egypt, minus 2700 BCE. The Zep-Tepi. The Egyptians called it Zep-Tepi the first time. This was not a mythical golden age. It was, according to their texts, a historical period when gods physically walked among humans. Gods like Thoth, who brought writing, mathematics, and medicine. Osiris, who taught agriculture and law. Ptah, the divine architect. The pyramid texts, carved inside pyramids centuries before the pharaohs, speak of these gods arriving in boats of millions of years that sailed through the sky. They describe silver bones, metallic skeletons, and eyes that see in darkness. Most compellingly, the Great Pyramid of Giza is not just a tomb. It's a mathematical marvel aligned to true north with precision, surpassing that of the Paris Observatory until the 17th century. Its dimensions encode the circumference of the Earth, the speed of light, and complex astronomical data. How did a Bronze Age society achieve this? The Egyptians themselves said, "We built according to the blueprint of the gods." Mesoamerica -1,5 BC. The feathered serpent *** across the Atlantic, the Olmec Maya, and Aztec civilizations tell of Quetzalcoatl, or Kukulkan, the feathered serpent. He was consistently described as a tall, bearded, pale-skinned man who arrived from the east across the sea. He came not in a boat, but in a serpent that moved without paddles, shining like the sun. He brought maize corn, agriculture, astronomy, the calendar, and moral codes. The Pyramid of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza is a stone calendar. During the spring and autumn equinoxes, sunlight creates the illusion of a serpent slithering down the pyramid. Steps artifact requiring precise, astronomical, and architectural knowledge. The Maya calendar itself is more accurate than the Gregorian calendar. They calculated the solar year 2 within 17 seconds of the modern value. Where did this knowledge come? The Maya said. From the sky teachers. The Andes -1000 BCE. High in the Andes, the Inca and their predecessors worshipped Viracocha. After a great flood destroyed the world, Viracocha emerged from Lake Titicaca. He was tall, white-skinned, bearded, and wore a long robe. He traveled the land, teaching agriculture, stone masonry, language, and laws. He performed miracles, healing the sick, turning stone into living beings. When his work was done, he walked across the Pacific Ocean, promising to return. The stonework at sites like Sacsayhuaman and Pumapunku is engineering magic. Stones weighing hundreds of tons are cut with such precision that a razor blade cannot fit between them. They have complex interlocking shapes, drilled holes, and polished surfaces that suggest technology beyond simple bronze tools. Local legend says, the stones were softened and molded by the gods. India -1500 BCE. The Vimanas ***, the ancient Sanskrit epics the Mahabharata and Ramayana contain what can only be described as technical manuals for flying machines. Vimanas, these were not metaphorical chariots. They are described in precise detail, constructed from lightweight metals like samaka and soundalika, powered by mercury engines or firewater propulsion systems, capable of vertical takeoff, hovering and supersonic speeds, equipped with weapons, Brahmistra, like nuclear weapons, Shakti energy beams, Gurney, wind projectiles. One passage describes a Vimana attack. A single projectile charged with the power of the universe, an incandescent column of smoke and flame as bright as 10,000 suns. The corpses were so burned as to be unrecognizable. Hair and nails fell out. Pottery broke without cause. Birds turned white. After a few hours, all foodstuffs were infected. This reads less like poetry and more like an account of radiation poisoning. China, -2500 BCE. The Dragons of Heaven. Chinese legends speak not of dragons as monsters, but as benevolent sky beings. The Yellow Emperor, Huangdi, arrived in a fiery chariot that roared like thunder. He taught medicine, acupuncture, metallurgy, bronze casting, writing, and silk production. His chariot was described as a self-moving vessel, made of polished metal that could ascend to the stars. Ancient Chinese texts also describe flying pearls and celestial orbs that descended from clouds, from which jade-clad beings emerged to teach astronomy and agriculture. The unavoidable conclusion: 6 cradles of civilization, 6 independent cultures with no contact, 6 identical stories. After a great flood or catastrophe, sky beings arrive. They teach agriculture, writing, law, medicine, astronomy, and architecture. Civilization blooms. Then, the beings depart, often promising to return. This is not coincidence. This is a pattern. If the knowledge came from above, perhaps the monuments themselves hold clues? Structures that defy the technological capabilities of their time, aligned with celestial precision. As if their builders had a perspective from above. Göbekli Tepe, Turkey 9600 BCE. Discovered in 1994. This site rewrote human history, dating back 11,600 years. It's the world's oldest known megalithic structure, built 7,000 years before Stonehenge, 6,000 years before the pyramids. Hunter-gatherers without metal tools, without the wheel, without domesticated animals, carved and erected massive T-shaped pillars weighing up to 20 tons. They're arranged in circles decorated with intricate carvings of animals: foxes, scorpions, vultures, snakes. But most importantly, the site is deliberately buried around 8,000 BCE, not by collapse, by human hands, as if to preserve it. Astronomical analysis shows the pillars align with the stars of the Cygnus constellation. The site's layout mirrors astronomical patterns. The builders were not primitive. They were precise. They had knowledge. But from where? Conventional archaeology has no answer. Stonehenge, England, -3000 BC. More than just stones in a circle. It's a sophisticated astronomical computer. It predicts eclipses, solstices, and lunar cycles. The blue stones were transported 150 miles from Wales, a logistical feat even today. But why build it? The ancient Britons said it was where the sky people touched the earth. The Great Pyramid Complex, Egypt. The mathematical precision is staggering, aligned to true north within 0.05 degrees. The ratio of its perimeter to its height equals to pi. The sides are perfect right angles, with margins of error less than 0.1%, encodes the Earth's dimensions. The perimeter divided by twice the height gives 3.1416 pi. The King's Chamber dimensions relate to Pythagorean triangles. The shafts from the King's Chamber point directly to Orion's belt and Sirius during specific epochs. Engineer Christopher Dunn, in his book The Giza Power Plant, argues it was not a tomb, but a machine, a harmonic resonator, possibly for energy generation. The Egyptians themselves called it the House of Energy. Pumapunku, Bolivia -536 separa de Tiwanaku complex. This is perhaps the most baffling site on Earth. Andesite and granite blocks, weighing up to 130 tons, are cut with machine-like precision. Notches, grooves, and holes are drilled with perfect uniformity. The stones interlock like Lego pieces. Geologists confirm these stones are so hard mosaic that they can only be cut with diamond-tipped tools. Yet this is pre-ink and pre-wheel, pre-iron. The Amara people say the gods built it in a single night, using the light of the stars to cut the stone. Baalbek, Lebanon, the Trilithon, in the Roman temple complex. 3 foundation stones each weigh over 800 tons. A fourth, the stone of the pregnant woman, weighs 1,000 tons. They're positioned with perfect alignment. Modern cranes struggle with 200-ton loads. How are 1,000-ton blocks quarried, transported, and lifted 20 feet into position? Roman historians recorded that the site was already ancient when they arrived. Local legend says it was built by giants before the flood, under instruction from the sky gods. Non-Medell, Micronesia, -1200 CE. A city built on artificial islands, with basalt columns weighing up to 50 tons. The local oral history is clear. It was built by twin sorcerers who flew the stones through the air using magic. The basalt came from quarries miles away. Across the sea, Easter Island Moai to 1250 CE. The famous statues average 14 tons, with the largest at 82 tons. How were they moved? The Rapa Nui oral tradition is specific. The statues walked to their positions. They were animated by mana, spiritual energy given by the birdman god Make, who came from across the ocean. Beyond stories and stones, there are physical artifacts that challenge our timeline. The Baghdad Battery 250 BCE, a clay jar containing a copper cylinder and iron rod. When filled with vinegar or citrus juice, it produces about 1.1 volts of electricity. Was it electroplating medical therapy? We don't know, but it proves ancient peoples understood electro principles. The Antikythera mechanism 100 BCE, recovered from a Greek shipwreck. This ancient computer used 30 bronze gears to predict lunar and solar eclipses, track planetary positions, and even calculate Olympic game cycles. Its complexity rivals 18th century clocks. Cicero wrote about similar devices, saying they came from older civilizations. The Dendera light, -50 BCE, in the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, Egypt. A relief shows what appears to be a giant light bulb with a filament, supported by pillars, with a cable running to a box. Egyptologists call it a lotus flower and snake, but the similarity to Crookes tubes, early electrical discharge tubes, is striking. A Koso artifact minus 500,000 years old. In 1961, inside a geode, dated at 500,000 years, collectors found what appears to be a modern spark plug encased in stone. The mystery remains unsolved. The Dropa stones minus 12,000 years old. In 1938, Chinese archaeologist Chepu Ti discovered 716 stone discs in Bayankara Yula caves. They had spiral grooves containing microscopic hieroglyphs. Translated, albeit controversially, they told of a spacecraft crash landing 12,000 years ago. The pilot's small beings with large heads were called the Dropa. They couldn't repair their ship and interbred with local humans. The discs allegedly disappeared during World War II. Genetic anomalies. Recent DNA studies show unexplained jumps in human evolution around 50,000 and 12,000 years ago. Some researchers point to possible gene editing or hybridization events. The Sumerian tablets describe exactly this. The Anunnaki mixed their essence with that of the earthworkers. Scholars, scientists, and thinkers have proposed various explanations. 1. The ancient astronaut theory. Eric von Däniken, Georgios Sakalas. Literally, extraterrestrial visitors came to Earth, genetically engineered or educated early humans, and were worshipped as gods. Evidence. The technological descriptions and myths, the sudden civilization, the astronomical knowledge. 2. The lost civilization hypothesis. Graham Hancock, Randall Carlson. An advanced human civilization existed before the Younger Dryas cataclysm, 12,800 years ago. Their survivors traveled the world, teaching stonework, agriculture, and astronomy. They became the gods of later cultures. Evidence. Flood myths worldwide, submerged ruins like Yanaguni, advanced mathematics and monuments. 3. The interdimensional hypothesis. Shock folly. These beings are not from other planets, but from other dimensions or parallel reality. They've interacted with humanity throughout history, appearing as gods, angels, or fairies, depending on cultural context. Evidence. The trickster nature of these beings. Their ability to appear, disappear, the psychological effects on witnesses. ****4. The psychological cultural convergence theory. Mainstream academia. Humans naturally create similar myths because we share similar psychology, environments, and challenges. Sky gods represent our awe of the heavens. Teachers represent cultural heroes. The similarities are coincidental or result from shared human experience. The time travel hypothesis. Future humans, having mastered time travel, returned to key points in history to guide their own evolution. They appeared as gods to avoid contaminating the timeline. The ultra-terrestrial theory. John Keel. These beings are native to Earth, but from a different state of existence, perhaps living in the oceans, underground, or in frequencies invisible to us. They interact with humanity periodically. Each theory has strengths, each has weaknesses, but one thing is clear: the traditional myth as primitive fiction explanation is insufficient. The pattern is too specific, too widespread, too detailed. The stories didn't end in ancient times, they continue today. 1947, Roswell, ****. The military recovered a flying disc and alien bodies, later changed to weather balloon. Witnesses describe beings with large heads and small bodies. 1961, Betty and Barney Hill abduction. Under hypnosis, Betty described a star map shown to her by her captors. Astronomer Marjorie Fish found it matched the Zeta Reticuli Systema binary star system, invisible to the naked eye. 1976, Tehran UFO incident. Iranian F-4 jets chased a luminous object that disabled their electronics. Ground witnesses described a cylinder with colored lights. 2004, Nimitz encounter. U.S. Navy pilots tracked tic-tac objects that defied physics. No wings, no heat signature, accelerating instantly to hypersonic speeds. 2017, New York Times revelation. The Pentagon's AATIP program confirmed UFOs are real, exhibit physics-defying capabilities, and remain unidentified. The descriptions from modern witnesses often match ancient ones. Silent crafts, bright lights, beings with large heads and eyes, telepathic communication, a sense of awe and fear. Are we witnessing the same phenomenon our ancestors did? Are they still here? Is it still observing? Is it still interacting? Conclusion. The sky heritage. We stand at a crossroads of understanding. For centuries we dismissed ancient stories as primitive fantasies. But what if we've been reading them wrong? What if they're not mythology, but history? The evidence is everywhere. Identical being descriptions worldwide. Sudden, simultaneous civilization. Impossible monuments with advanced mathematics, astronomical knowledge. Before telescopes, modern encounters, echoing ancient ones. Perhaps the truth is simpler than we think. Perhaps our ancestors were literal. Perhaps beings did come from the sky. Perhaps they taught us, guided us, maybe even created us. And perhaps they're still watching, still waiting for us to understand. The greatest clue might be in the consistency itself. As anthropologist Dr. Michael Witzel notes, myths are not random. They preserve real events, filtered through cultural lenses. When the same story appears everywhere, it's not coincidence. It's memory. Our task now is not to dismiss, but to investigate. Not to ridicule, but to reconsider. Dust stones are speaking. Dust stones are testifying. Dust stones are waiting. We are not alone. We never were. And the sky above us is not empty. It is a page in our shared story, a story that began not with us, but with those who came before, those who came from above.